Hi, this is Peter Sage, creator of the Millionaire Business School, Amazon bestselling author, and on this video I want to address a real serious issue for many people, and that is how to deal with change in life. Now the question is there change in life? And we all know the answer to that. There is change not only just in life, but at every single level of life. Change is everywhere. And in a modern society where things are exponentially growing faster from our understanding of life and physics and science and the things that come out of that, to really the way society is exponentially growing and dealing with its own issues and problems and try to adapt to find its level, then change has never been more pertinent at any time in human history than it is right now. And what I notice is that there's so many people have a tough time with that. It's really very catabolic. It really pushes people back into their shell or can throw them off balance if they don't have a way of being able to deal with change in their life. It can literally paralyze people through fear, and it's such a shame because change can really be your best friend. And understanding change and the inevitability of that is really the difference between using it to empower you or allowing yourself to be disempowered. So let's just take a look at that. And it's not just about change in life. This is change at work, change in your relationships, change in anything. And the reason I want to cover it all is because how you do something is usually indicative of how you do everything. So how you handle change at work will really be the foundational pattern of how you handle change in relationships, how you handle change in plans when they change unexpectedly. So let's just look at an overarching understanding of that and see if there's something we can pick out together here that'll hopefully allow you to deal with change in a more powerful and positive way. And let's just look at, as I say, the word. So change itself, we have a lot of different associations to. If you like surprises, for example, Tony Robbins states this. He says, people like surprises, right? You like surprises. Well, the reality is that you like the surprises that you want. The surprises that we don't want, we tend to call problems. And so, it's dealing with the surprises that we don't want that really is our relationship or governs our relationship to change. So, if you can understand that so many people are paralyzed through the thought of stepping out of their comfort zone. And the term comfort zone is widely used, and really it's about where you have a tolerance or a limit of your tolerance for what steps in or out of that sort of environment in terms of change. So, if you have a work environment and all of a sudden there's a change to your job description, and it's a small change that doesn't push you too far outside of your comfort zone, then you kind of adapt, no big deal. If all of a sudden your company gets taken over and everything changes from the management to the pay structure to the job roles and responsibilities, then that pushes people usually further outside of their comfort zone, and that's where resistance to change tends to come in. So how do you become resilient to that? Well, it's no surprise that the people who are most successful in adapting or being resilient to change aren't those that have the special techniques that allow them to embrace or deal with the stuff in the outer world in a more sort of strategic or appropriate way. No. Managing change is not an outer game on how to dance differently with the circumstances. Managing change and the keys to resilience around change management is all about managing the inner world. You see, the first thing to understand is that everything in the outer world, everything in the physical world, is subject to the law of impermanence. Every single relationship that you or I have will end. And let's put the stuff on the table, guys. Whether you want to hear it or whether you don't, let's face facts. Every single relationship, your relationship with your body will one day end. Your relationship with your soulmate will one day end in the physical world. Either one or both of you will die, or you will choose separate paths during the journey while you're still alive. But every relationship ends. Your relationship with your current employer will end one day. Either you will choose to leave, they will invite you to leave, or the company itself will transition in or out of business. but every relationship ends. So understanding that as a framework, everything in the physical world is subject to the law of impermanence kind of at least sets us up for understanding the game that we're trying to play. So how do you deal with that? Well, I mean, I remember the story said to be King Solomon that went to his wise men, and he says, listen, can you please give me a phrase that whenever I face uncertainty will allow me to deal with that uncertainty, to help me with that uncertainty? And they went away and they deliberated and they started to try to pick or put together this phrase. And all of the wise men and the sages at the time came back and they actually handed him a ring. And the ring was inscribed with one sentence. And the sentence was, "This too shall pass." This too shall pass. If you're having a great time now, guess what? This too shall pass. You're having a tough time right now, this too shall pass. The seasons of life are the seasons of life. Now, some people are in the winter of their lives and therefore they either get cold or they go skiing depending on how they handle that. Other people are in springtime, but here's what I know. Spring always follows winter. You can't shortcut that. It can't be summer all the time. It can't be fall all the time. It can't be time to harvest all the time. Sometimes you've got to do the work and then suffer through the cold and then wait for spring again. But change is an inevitable part of life. The cycles of change are the only constant, as has also been said. If you go to the Bible, a book that has so much profound wisdom in, when you can strip away some of the metaphors and go for the actual understanding of the messages contained. You've got Ecclesiastes, number 3, one of my favorite parts of the Bible, when they talk about, there's a time for everything. There's a time to tear down and there's a time to build. There's a time to weep and there's a time to laugh. Time to love, time to hate. Time for peace, time for war. Everything has its time. And I was handed that chapter from Ecclesiastes at the time that my mother passed away. And that was my essentially last living close relative. I don't have any brothers, I don't have any sisters. All of my grandparents had passed away by the time I was 6. I have very few aunts, uncles or cousins that I see on any kind of regular basis or close to. So my mum was kind of my last living relative, and she'd passed away very recently and very separately to my father just 18 months after. So I was very alone at that point. But it was a wise uncle that I hadn't seen for a while came up to me, and he handed me at my mother's funeral that verse from Ecclesiastes. And at that time it really helped to understand that it's every parent's wish that their children outlive them, for example. It's going to happen at some point. The only downside is we never get to choose when, and it's always too soon. But there's a time. There's a time for everything. So understanding that the base level is that change will happen whether you or I want it to or not is the foundational point. The other thing that we need to look at here, my friends, is that most of us are way too attached to the comfort zone that we're in. And if you only understood or knew what a comfort zone was to the human personality and potential, you'd probably only be too keen to jump out of it, because it's so inconsistent with the limitless nature of what we're capable of. It's so confining to us. Say, oh, I daren't step out of here, or oh, I daren't take this opportunity, or oh my God, I'm going to withdraw from something that now doesn't fit my pictures because I'm not familiar with it. Being able to seize the day, being able to swing the bat at life, swing, hit, miss, pitch, strike out, doesn't matter. Getting in the game at that level is what really the key to entrepreneurship is. It's the ability to handle uncertainty. But know that there is no certainty in life. So how do you deal with that change? Well, one of the things I'd invite you to do is to actually write down a list of all of the things that you feel that you're most attached to. And just analyze it, because that's usually where the weak points are. That's usually where we tend to freak out if something threatens that level of attachment. Is it a relationship to a certain person? Is it the financial circumstances or a certain type of home that you live in that you don't want to let go of? Now, I'm not saying ignore it. I'm not saying bury your head in the sand and be an ostrich. Far from it. I'm saying identify. If you want to learn how to deal with change, identify where are the things that you're most attached to. And here's what I'm going to invite you to do. I'm going to invite you to listen to the words of one of my great mentors, a very famous person who has given wisdom throughout the last couple of decades to many millions of people, especially from my generation. A person who I've personally never met, but is kind of making a comeback on the scene right now, and that is Master Yoda from Star Wars. And whether George Lucas was just an inherent genius in some of the words that he was putting through the character of Yoda or not, I reserve judgment on. But one of the phrases that Yoda gives in Star Wars is, it's actually in my studio here on my wall, it's in my meditation room, and it's very profound. It says, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Just sit with that for a second, because that freaks a lot of people out. But follow me here. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Every relationship in life ends, my friends, and everything in the physical world is subject to the law of impermanence. We can't circumvent that. So train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. And what that does, in my mind, is it sets up the following metaphor. Every attachment that we have, everything on the list that you're putting together, is almost like a wall. And the more we're attached to it, the more we're leaning on that wall. Now, if you're leaning on a wall and somebody takes that wall away, what tends to happen? You become unstable. It throws you off balance at best and usually can land you on your ass at worst. So make a note, what are the walls that I'm leaning on? Because if I'm so desperate to keep hold of this job because I need it to pay my rent, and that's a wall I'm really leaning on, if that gets taken away, which is 1000% probable, then I'm going to fall over and be depressed. And from that state of being depressed, it's very hard to go and then stand on my own 2 feet and go get another job. So if I can start to understand that my attachments are like walls that I'm leaning on, I can start to place myself in a way that I'm standing on my own 2 feet. If I can start to train myself to let go of what I fear to lose so that more of me is grounded, solid, centered, present, then if it does fall away, which there's no guarantees or certainty that it ever won't, then I'm not going to go with it. Now, the magic in this is not suddenly saying, I don't care. Far from it. Listen in. Instead, it's about saying, if I'm committed, for example, to a relationship and I'm so scared of this person leaving me, well, for a start, and this is another video, that sets up codependence and neediness, which means you can't love unconditionally that which you're leaning against at all ever. But let's just say it's a relationship and I'm leaning on that wall. If that person leaves me, yes, I feel loss, I feel sadness, I feel grief, I feel a lack of connection. But if I was standing on my own 2 feet in relationship to that person so that I could celebrate being with them like two separate instruments that create a harmony, like 1 + 1 = 11 together, but when one goes, I'm still one on my own. Not all of a sudden -1 now because I've collapsed because I was leaning on the wall. Then from that place, I can start to bring more of me to the table, to the job that I'm in, to the relationship that I'm in. You understand? So by letting go of what I fear to lose, the energy that I'm trying to grab hold of it with is released to allow more of me to show up, which contributes more to my workplace, which allows me probably less chance of being let go of that job or that relationship. So how do you deal with change in life? Accept that it's there and it's our relationship to it that is the fundamental driver. And the more we're leaning on the attachments that we have, the more likely we're going to be falling down hard if somebody takes that wall away for whatever reason. So owning yourself at that level and knowing that no matter what happens, no matter what life throws at you, no matter where the river winds on its journey through life, that you will always be okay. That no matter whether you screw up or whether you don't, you'll still be loved by the people that matter. If they don't mind, then the people that mind won't matter, and the people that matter won't mind. I can't say it any simpler than that. So just knowing that regardless of what happens, you'll be okay. We live in a society where it's impossible to starve to death. Go back 100 years and try that one. We were worried if we got a thorn while we were gardening in case septicemia set in and caused us to be out of this game in 3 weeks from now. That was one of the impetuses behind the creation of penicillin. So we live with so much more certainty right now about things that are important. Understand that focusing on what we can be grateful for rather than what we're afraid of and those two thoughts can't live in the same room, will allow us the strength to stand on our own 2 feet, bring more of who we are to the world, and deal with whatever life throws at us. That is the life you're born to live, my friends.